إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا والنساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله جل في العلا وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. As we resume our lessons in this tremendous book entitled Kitaab At-Tawheed, which today is Wednesday, July the 11th, which is correlating with on the Gregorian calendar of 2018, Wednesday, July the 11th, which also coincides with the Islamic calendar of Shawwal, which is the 27th, or tonight I think officially be the 28th of Shawwal, 1439 after the hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam. And we resume our lesson, Ya Ma'ash al-Ikhwa, and these very important lessons. As we started Kitaab At-Tawheed, we took in a good portion of it for the past couple of months, and we made our main focus on these lessons. For verily, these lessons are of the utmost importance. For every Muslim, as soon as he takes his shahada, as soon as he enters the fold of Islam, it's incumbent upon him to learn what is monotheism, as in so many occasions we have emphasized. We have talked about the importance of it and how Allah Ta'ala has made this ilm, this knowledge, the greatest of all knowledges. There's no knowledge greater than the knowledge of Tawheed. Tawheed meaning how to unify the one who created you in his worship. That is the purpose of why the human being was created. He was created to actualize this purpose of worshiping Allah Ta'ala alone and staying away from the false deities or idols or associating partners with him in his worship. So monotheism, or Tawheed, as we know, is the greatest of all ulum, it's the greatest of all knowledge. Ashraf al-ulum ala al-itlaq, as we know, is the most honorable, most noble, and greatest of all knowledge in all cases, without any exception. For verily, if one was to die upon this affair of monotheism, even if he was neglectful in some of his duties of Allah Ta'ala, even if he was neglectful, and he dies in that state where in certain affairs in which Allah has obliged upon the abd, upon the slave, then if he dies in a state of monotheism, then if he doesn't go to paradise directly, where one maybe, and we ask Allah Ta'ala not to test us with the hellfire, that he will maybe have to be put in hell to be purified of certain sins, but inevitably his abode will be the paradise and the gardens if he died in a state of monotheism, which is called Tawheed. That's why we said it is the greatest of all knowledge. And likewise, the opposite effect of that, the most greatest of all evils and ills, and the most worst of matters, and the most evilest, the most wretched, and the most wicked of affairs is shirk, is polytheism. There's no evil worse than polytheism, shirk. For shirk or polytheism is the worst. There's no evil after that evil. For verily one is to die in that state of polytheism, as we know, then he will abide and dwell in hell forever, due to the fact it is the most disgraceful and the most embarrassing and the most detrimental of affairs. For that reason, you find that the masajid that focuses on these affairs, why they put so much emphasis on learning them, due to how important they are for the human being, for his survival in this world as well as in the hereafter. For that reason, we will resume where we stopped, which before Ramadan, where we stopped in a chapter in which we concluded the chapter pertaining to seeking blessing by a tree or a rock or anything similar to that. As we concluded that, we finalized what we mentioned from the chapter where it says, "Man tabarraka bi shajarin or hajarin or nahwihima." The chapter for the one who seeks blessing by a tree or a rock or anything similar to that. We finished that chapter, and we start the new chapter for today. As we know, walillahi alhamdu wal minna, how Islam is spreading very fast. And even the non-Muslims have confessed that it is the number one, rather it's the fastest growing religion in the world, where people are embracing it everywhere, whether they be in America, whether they be in the hood, whether they be in the rich class, middle class, whatever class, everyone is embracing Islam, and their curiosity is being aroused to the point, like we said, where a lot of them are entering into the fold of Islam. However, the problem is the cultivation after they embrace it, where it's incumbent upon us, for those who have the correct belief and the correct creed and conviction, to teach these people and to cultivate them properly, so they will not be subjected to returning back to that fold, the fold of disbelief, after Allah saved them from it. And one of the ways that one is saved is by educating and propagating and nurturing and cultivating them properly upon the proper monotheism, because that is the proper nurturing in which one will give, and as a result of it, he will gain and attain ma'rifah of Allah. He will attain knowledge of Allah. Because once a person has a knowledge of his creator, or the one who created him, then that will be a fortification and shield for him, which not only will become Muslim correctly, but he will even last with a point where he will stay firm upon it. Because no one can stay firm upon something if he has ignorance of that affair. Rather, if he attains knowledge and proper knowledge, he will attain some type of base and foundation in which it will be a shield and protection for him. So when the winds of disbelief, or when shaitan, or when the unseen devil comes with some type of ambiguities to cause some conviction in your belief system from the different types of doubtful matters out there that will try to persuade you to return back to the evil state that you were in, is so plentiful and so many in number. And the only way you can shield yourself from those type of winds or satanic winds that blow is by fortifying yourself with the ilm of Tawheed, number one, and the affairs of aqa'id, and the affairs of the belief system. So for that reason, you'll find there's so many Muslims out here that have ignored what we're teaching right now, to the point where you speak to some of them, it's as if they're new shahadas, as if they took Islam even though they've been Muslim for years. Why? Because they ignored the foundation. You speak to them, even if you hear certain statements, you can hear certain statements that will necessitate that they have not built a foundation for themselves, which comes as a result of it. You'll find that they are falling into affairs not only are just in regards to being disobedient, but even affairs that might nullify their Islam in totality, totally, because they were not cultivated and taught properly in the proper masajid. Whereas those people who are disseminating the knowledge truly educated the Muslims properly and given them what they needed in order for them not only to become Muslim, but to stay Muslim after they become Muslim, and not only just be Muslim, but be a person that knows why they're Muslim and what's the reason of why they're Muslim and what they are performing and who they're performing their worship for and why they are doing certain affairs and why they are doing certain acts. But once you neglect this type of knowledge, which is the foundation, then like we said, the winds or the satanic winds of doubts can come and it can rock you, and which will come as a result of it. Like we know, Some will even apostate and leave the fold of Islam because the person that was responsible for disseminating the proper knowledge ignored this matter, which we're talking about right now. So that reason, the great author of this book, who's the great Imam, Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah, Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, as we concluded the chapter, like we said, and we'll start on this one, as the meaning of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, when a person utters that kalima or that word in order to enter into the fold of Islam and validate his Islam, once he takes that shahada, like we said, it's incumbent upon him two affairs, which are an emergency. He needs to consider that an emergency in his mind. He needs to learn the affairs of monotheism, which is pertaining to what we call, all it's tied in, just to summarize it, make it concise, all of it is tied into what we call aqidah. Aqidah meaning learning the fundamental belief system of Islam. To fundamentally ground yourself and then build your religion upon that foundation. So, pertaining to aqidah, meaning that you learn the proper creed and belief system. And number two, likewise, learn the affairs of minhaj, of methodology, where they all tied in together. That's an affair that is an emergency as soon as you become Muslim. Because that is what's going to now be an aid to protecting yourself to when you're being exposed out there on the streets, or on your phones, or on social media, or what have you. There's going to be different types of temptation to get you to go back to what you were upon before you were Muslim. And the only way you can protect yourself is by learning this knowledge. That's the reason why we highly emphasize that our people come out and learn these matters, because they're the utmost of importance. And you learn also likewise the affairs of methodology, minhaj. Why? Because also you need to know there are Muslims out there that are not upon the correct belief. That is the truth. So not only there are people of disbelief out there that will tempt you and want you to leave off what you're upon, but also there are Muslims out there similar to that will try to what? Tempt you to fall into some type of deviance in what we're teaching you now in the fundamentals. There are Muslims out there that are not upon the proper belief system of Islam. You have to also know that, which we'll talk about and discuss. That's the reason why we're focusing on these matters, because, like we said, the more you gain knowledge of these fundamentals, the more you will build a protection around yourself, so you will not go back to the state in which Allah Ta'ala saved you from, which is the state of disbelief, or a state of which you'll be from those Muslims who are from the deviant sects, which the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith of the 73 sects, in which you'll find there are Muslims out there here even trying to cause doubt in that hadith also likewise, to the point where they want to justify what they are or what they're upon, or what is in opposition to what minhaj as-Salafi, what the correct understanding of Islam calls to. You'll find that there are Muslims out there that even to the point in which I will refute, that says that hadith of iftiraq, of the hadith of how the ummah of Muhammad ﷺ will separate the 73 sects and all of them in hell except one, which we'll discuss inshallah. So we return back to the affairs of Tawheed. But verily, ma'ashal ikhwa, the title, as we'll resume, or where we'll start from, is the chapter which comes in Bab ma ja'a fi dhabhi li ghayrillah. The chapter of what comes in slaughtering or sacrificing for other than Allah. Slaughtering or sacrificing, or often a sacrifice for other than Allah. For verily the shahada, when a person becomes Muslim, of course we know, he utters the testimony of La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. None has the right to be worshipped. None has the right to be worshipped in truth except Him subhanahu jalla fil ula. When you utter the shahada, as we know, one needs to know what are the affairs of worship in which one needs to unify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His worship, in detail. Because when you say La ilaha illallah, none has the right to be worshipped in truth except Allah. None has the right to be worshipped. Tayyib, what is worship? What is it? There are different types. What are the types in which we talk about? That's what this book explains. All the different affairs of worship in which is binding upon the human being to unify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His worship in. You need to know what is the types of worship. And that's what we're going to explain here. We already covered some of the aspects of worship. Now we're going to talk about another one. One of those affairs of worship, and like we said, Keep in mind that these titles and all these different chapters are explaining the meaning of La ilaha illallah. It's explaining it and giving it in detail. You said it generally when you uttered that testimony in order to become Muslim. You said it generally. Now you have to know the details. So what are the details? The details is in this chapter here. So from the affairs of worship was incumbent upon the slave, or incumbent upon the abd. When we say slave, we mean a slave of Allah, meaning as far as in your worship. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, and as a result of it, we are considered ibad, worshippers and slaves of Allah, meaning that on the day of resurrection, when we come and meet the one who created us, who is Allah, who is one deity, who is one God worthy of worship. As we know, those who are upon the correct methodology, correct belief, Allah is going to show himself to the believers on the day of resurrection, and as a result, they'll prostrate. In order to show, when a person bows, of course, and he prostrates, and he falls in prostration, is showing your worship of the one who created you. To now actualize what you were created for. And once, like we said, once you find a reason or the purpose of why you're walking around in this world, is when everything will fall and come into place to know that you're a human being that finally realizes why I'm here on this earth in the first place. Once you now discover that, then everything else falls into place. But those who are out here in this world in the street, you see them walking around like zombies, lost zombies. Why? Because they don't know why they've been created. And they're not doing or carrying out the affair of why they were created. They're not doing it. So they have two reasons, or two things why they're like zombies. One, they don't know why they're created. Number two, they're not doing it. Both at the same time. And number three, if you want to add another one, they're not doing it correctly. They're doing it based upon something that was innovated by human beings, not upon what Allah legislated and what He sent down so that people can worship Him properly. So, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, so what do you want to say? So the first affair of Tawheed, when you say La ilaha illallah, as we know, from those details, from the details is another affair of worship which is called dhabh. Dhabh meaning to offer a sacrifice. To offer a sacrifice. That affair of offering a sacrifice, meaning that you would take an animal in which Allah has created, and Allah Himself, as we'll talk about in His final book or His noble book, which is the final revelation, which is the Quran, fi muhkami tanzilih, you'll find that Allah Ta'ala has created the animals, and He has made it for mankind, and even to the point when you even sacrifice an animal in order to eat the lawful meat that Allah has created the animal for, you'll find that if you do it properly, that they actually submit themselves. So they are, if one does it in a proper manner, not in a affair when one abuses it like the non-Muslims, when they take it and hit it with a hammer or strip it or beat it or kick it. That's incorrect. Rather, we know in our religion that's impermissible to do that. And that a person can enter the hellfire if he abuses an animal. People don't know that. And some of the Muslims don't know that. Now, if you abuse an animal, you oppress an animal, you could be even, Allah Ta'ala can even put one in the hellfire as a result of abusing an animal or mistreating an animal. Why? What's the evidence and proof? Due to the hadith of Abu Hurairah, which we'll discuss, inshallah. You'll learn this as we come along. With the Prophet ﷺ, he said, دَخَلَ الْمَرْأَ فِي هِرَّةٍ, that a woman entered the hellfire because of a cat. That the woman entered the hellfire because of a cat. Due to the fact that she used to what? Lock it up and mistreat it, and never used to let it roam around in order to what? In order for it to be free, to attain its provisions, to eat, and things of that nature that it needs in order to what? In order to exist. Where you'll find that a woman that she oppressed it. And as a result of it, Allah even put her in hell for mistreatment of an animal, which is something that what? Is dangerous. So now when we talk about sacrificing, we're talking about in a manner of how Allah had prescribed for where one is to do it, it wouldn't cause any pain or harm to the animal. Rather, if one is to do it properly, you will find by the natural disposition of a not a human being, but of the animal, if one was to do it properly, the animal even submits. If you go to those who even sacrifice or slaughter the animal properly, and if you lay it down and you hide the weapon, of course, you hide what you're going to slaughter the animal with, you do it properly and lay it down properly, you will even find that the animal will submit itself. It will lay down. It's as if Allah instinctively created it to know what it was why it was created and what it was supposed to do and what will be the result as far as doing or sacrificing that sacrificial meat for the people to eat or what have you. Because we eat meat every day. It's something it's known. The problem is this is an affair of worship. It could be an affair of worship. Excuse me. It can be an affair of worship, as we're going to break down. So number one, if you look in the title of the chapter, it says, Bab ma ja'a fi dhabh. As you'll find the great Imam in this book, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, he put in the chapter, Bab. So like we said, we're given a tafsir or a meaning of another affair of worship, which is the meaning of La ilaha illallah. Like we said, generally, that's what you uttered in order to become Muslim. Now we're given the details of it. What is those affairs of worship that's incumbent upon you, or us in generally? How or what those affairs that we have to unify Allah and His worship in? What are they? From those affairs is this here. Sacrificing. Or putting forth a sacrifice for Allah. As far as that meat would is slaughtered from the animals. So, the word dhabh is what they call dhabhul baha'im. Slaughtering or sacrificing al-baha'im or al-haywanat or those animals, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed us to use or to utilize as a sacrifice to offer to Him as a means to draw close to Him in His worship. So one wants to draw close to His worship from those affairs is what they call dhabh. Dhabh, like we said, means to sacrifice. Notice he put in the chapter, if you're reading the book, it says the chapter which comes in, al-dhabh li ghayrillah. The chapter for sacrificing or offering a sacrifice for other than Allah. For other than Allah. Notice that the great Imam did not give a hukum here. Because it has some details in it. Because al-dhabh, as we know, slaughtering or sacrificing an animal is of different types, as we're going to clarify. As we're going to give the details. But however, as we know generally, to sacrifice for other than Allah, or to offer as a sacrifice an animal, and to do it, and you're trying, or in your intention is to draw close to Allah by that worship, which is to offer that sacrifice. If your niyyah now, your intention is for ta'zeem, to glorifying Allah by sacrificing this animal for Allah, then we know that is what they call monotheism. That is what they call worship and unifying Allah in His worship. But the niyyah or the intention has to be solely for Allah, meaning the one who's above the heavens, not for anything Allah created. It cannot be sacrificed, and one cannot sacrifice for the intention of worship for a man or anything Allah created. If one does that, and if you do that, you have nullified your Islam. Your religion or the religion of Islam will be nullified, as we'll talk about inshallah. Just as we know there are things that validate your religion, you have to learn affairs that will nullify it and will take you out the fold of Islam. And from those affairs that will remove you from the fold of Islam is like we talked about a couple of minutes ago, which is shirk, which is polytheism, which we'll talk about in a minute. Fine. So notice that the author, he said, the chapter which comes to slaughter or sacrifice for other than Allah. لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ اللَّامِ لِلتَّعْلِيلِ وَالْقَصْدِ, as we know. When he says for other than Allah, for verily it goes back to the intention of the person. We know the intention, it's places of the heart, as we know, right everyone? When one intends to do something, ultimately and initially it comes from the heart. So one, when he wants to offer that sacrifice, his intention is solely and only and exclusively for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. That's it. And his heart is not turned towards anything Allah created. Not from a man, not from a rock, not from the tree, not from the sun, the moon, the planet, nothing. All of it, your aspect of worship, is directed towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And on this occasion, I want to mention a side benefit. And I want to re-emphasize what our brother Abdul Hassan Malik even mentioned in his lecture a couple of days ago, Hafidhullah. Where the great Imam, Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, as he taught this whole book, he authored it. And he finished it with his students. He finished this whole book. This is with the explanation, but it's a little bit shorter than this. But he authored the whole book and he finished it. And after he finished it, of course we know from the adab, the ways of those who are truly, those who want to rectify societies of the world, they start with this affair. which is of how to worship Allah and unifying Allah in His worship. They started with this affair, and he finished it and concluded it until one of his students, and even some of them have said, Sheikh, we're tired of learning Tawheed. When are we going to stop learning Tawheed? We learn it over and over and over and over. We understand Tawheed. Fahimna Tawheed. Shabi'na min Tawheed. We're filled with Tawheed. We understand this monotheism, worship, the fundamentals. We're finished. So we know that the great Imam, after that, he went on and something happened within his community where he was at that particular time. As he heard and it reached him that there was a person that sacrificed and slaughtered an animal for other than Allah, meaning they offered it to some person, or they sacrificed that animal for a person, or a person that was dead. They offered it, or this sacrifice, to that human being, and his blood was poured for that human being, until it reached the students of Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahab. And when they reached the students, none of them reacted. None of them took it seriously. None of them say, oh, that's not a big deal. None of them had any reaction when they heard that when polytheism was committed, or idolatry was committed. They had no reaction. They had no feeling. As soon as it reached the students of the one who authored this book, they didn't care. It was like, what's that? What's wrong with that? It's not a big deal. Someone slaughtered for other than Allah. It's not a big deal. Who cares? Then the great Imam has said, no, it was not. What has reached me also is that someone had incest with their own mother. He said, also reached me that someone had basically was intimate with their own mother. So all of the students went berserk. All of them went berserk. They were like, oh, subhanAllah. They said, who would do that? That's disgusting. That's filthy. That's filthy and that's disgusting and that's repulsive. Who would do such a thing with their own mother? So Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahab at the end, he said, it's incumbent upon us to open this book again and do it again. We have to start this book over again. You still don't understand yet. He said that was incumbent upon you to do that reaction when you heard that polytheism was committed. When you heard that sacrifice for other than Allah was done, you should have had that same reaction when you heard that. You should have been repulsed. You should be wanting to throw up when you heard that polytheism was done and that someone slaughtered for other than Allah. Because that's worse. Because that's polytheism. That will land you in the hellfire forever. Done. If you die in that state where you committed polytheism, Islam is nullified, Allah will not forgive it, you'll be in hell forever. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ أَن يُشْرَكَ بِهِ وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَن يَشَاءُ. Allah does not forgive that partners be set up within His worship. However, if He forgives for other than that, for whom He wills. Allah can forgive for that act, because that act that man did with his mother was a major sin. But it wasn't at the level of polytheism. Polytheism is on a whole higher level. So that's the reason why you'll find that he's went over again the book to put emphasis to let one know how of great importance this is. And what I don't understand is this is the great Imam with his students who finished this book. What about those who don't teach this book at all? How much danger their community would be in? Based upon they're building their community off of air, basically. There's no foundation. If this was the level of concern with the great Imam, had to go over it with his book again with the students, because of them not truly realizing the great affair of monotheism and the severity of polytheism to the point where he had to go over it again. What about those who don't even focus on this book at all? How much of a level and state the community will be in? You understand, everyone? And you'll find not only do people from the Muslims that warn against these type of books, not only do they not teach the book, you'll even find that they even warn against it. And that's the reason why you'll find that their masajid and their state that they're in is very chaotic. You'll find that the Muslims are doing weird, very strange things and saying strange statements upon their tongue that is in opposition to what comes in the authentic book and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. For verily, like we said, for starting with number one, إن يذبح لغير الله تقربا. So number one, the first type of worship. The first type of worship is that one offer a sacrifice to other than Allah. First category, number one. What are the different types of worship? ما أنواع الذبح. So now we want to bring the different categories, what is pertaining to dhabh, of sacrifice. The first type of sacrifice, number one, is to sacrifice for other than Allah. To sacrifice for other than Allah. In order to draw close to that thing. And to magnify it and glorify it. So, this type of sacrifice is not offered for Allah. Rather, it's offered to something Allah created. What's the ruling on this? The ruling on this is called shirk. It's polytheism. It's called polytheism. I'm offering this sacrifice, I'm offering this animal in order to draw close to this rock. Or in order to draw close to the sun. Or in order that the sun, or in order that the moon allow something good to happen in my life. So I sacrifice this animals for you. For if it's out of worship and you do it to something that Allah created, that's polytheism. If you do this, Islam, you being a Muslim is nullified. It's nullified your religion, nullified your Islam. And if you die in that state, you'll be in the hellfire forever. You never come out. Pick up your book. Don't put it on the phone. You need to write these down. So the first category is what they call sacrificing for other than Allah. Out of magnifying, glorifying that thing. You have an intention to offer that sacrifice, that animal, or drawing close to that thing in order for that thing that you're worshiping to love you, or you want it to give you some type of closeness to that particular thing in which you're trying to worship. So by that, you sacrifice it. What comes as a result of it? If you're Muslim, you say La ilaha illallah, has nullified that testimony. It's not valid anymore. It's nullified. It's done. So that's number one. Number two, type of sacrifice. Because that one offers a sacrifice but in a manner that is what they call mubah. In fact, we go to the second category. I'm doing this because it has some details. Anyway, the second category, that one sacrifice for other than Allah. But however, it's not done out of drawing close or magnifying that thing that you're worshiping. You're not magnifying or glorifying it. But however, you're doing it out of rejoicement and out of honor of a particular thing. So that's the second category. So the difference between the first category is that you're doing it in order to magnify that thing that's being worshipped, or that object that's being worshipped, or that man that's being worshipped, or that thing, no matter what it is. The second category is that when you're doing it out of honor, or to show or display honor for a particular thing, or out of rejoicement. Someone just came from traveling. You haven't seen them in 10 years. So they descended from the airplane, or they descended from the car. You haven't seen them in 10, 15 years. So you're happy. So you'll find in some countries, out of rejoicement or to show honor for that particular individual, they'll slaughter an animal as a displayment to show rejoicement or honor for that particular person. What is the ruling for that? That's what we're going to speak about in a couple of minutes, or right now. So that's the second category. That one sacrifices for other than Allah, but however, it's not out of magnification or glorification. But however, out of rejoicement and out of what? Displaying honor and showing honor to one, or to an individual. Showing honor to a person, let's just say, for example, the person slaughtered the meat, the second category. Basically, he's just slaughtering a meat, but he's not doing it out of worship for Allah, but rather he's just doing it for the guests. or someone, he wants to be hospitable to his guests. But he's not doing it when his intention is to draw close to Allah by it. Rather, I'm just doing it because it's someone that I haven't seen in 20 years. I'm happy to see him or her. I haven't seen them in a long time. They came from a long, remote, distance place, and I'm happy to see them. So you might have an animal, and to give them that fresh meat in order to be hospitable to your guests and show honor to your guests or show honor to that person that you respect, you slaughtered some meat in order for him to eat it. What is the ruling in this regard? What's the ruling in everyone? Is this polytheism? Or is it not polytheism? You're not drawing close to that person. Just showing them honor and respect. You sacrifice a meat for them. Not for them as worship, but just out of mere hospitality, if you want to be. Things in regards to being hospitable, that's it. But not out of worship. What is it? Is it permissible? Is that polytheism? Or is that monotheism? Or is it monotheism? Or is it just something natural? You want to say? Is it polytheism? J. Ahsantu. For verily, I'm going to give an example. Right now, if someone who is of authority came to a particular city, and he descended from the airplane, or he descended from the car, or something, a vehicle, any type of transportation, a train, whatever. Person of honor, or a person that's of high esteem or high power, he's a person that's, I'll say prestige, but a person of power. He descends from the plane. So you grabbed the meat and you slaughtered it for him out of glorification for him. For glorification of him. And magnifying his matter or his affair as if now he's at the level of Allah. What is it? It's clear, it's polytheism. It's not permissible. And not only does it come with the act, which is polytheism, but even the meat becomes unlawful. Because you sacrifice something of a sacrifice or a meat that was done for other than Allah. We're going to talk about the ahkam or the rulings in regards to it too. Like for example, as soon as he comes off the plane, he might kiss his feet. Then he comes and brings and slaughters an animal for him. And even to the point where some of them will even call out their name while they sacrifice him. You'll find that. Oh, so-and-so, who leader of a country, I slaughtered this meat for you. Shirk, that's polytheism. You understand? This meat is for you. For the human being. No matter who it is, it's not what? Permissible. It's not lawful. طيب. As for, let's say, like if we sacrifice or offer that sacrifice, just to show honor to his guests, just to be hospitable. He cooked it, ate it, sacrificed the meat, or cut the meat, cooked it, and the person ate it. And he did it out of what? To show honor and generosity. What is this? What is it? Is it polytheism? It's not polytheism. Rather, it's from those affairs that are what they call mubah. Mubah meaning that it's something natural. You're just being kind to show someone to be hospitable and to be generous. Generosity. That's not polytheism. But rather, if the affair goes back to the what? Of course, the intention and also the act, of course, it comes along with it. If the intention is to show glorification or worship, that is polytheism. And this is what the mu'allif or the author here in this book is talking about. He's talking about this type of what? This type of sacrifice. So that's the reason why we're given detail. That's the reason why we're given these details. Right. So now when the great Imam, he goes on to say, a person that sacrifices or offers a sacrifice for other than Allah, it doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter who it is. You cannot sacrifice for other than Allah. Doesn't matter whether it's the anbiya, the malaika, the awliya, or other than that. Doesn't matter who it is. Even if it's people who are known for righteousness and uprightness, and at the head of them are the prophets and the messengers, and the angels, and those who follow them from the righteous, from the awliya of Allah, who are the believers in the prophets, or the believers in the revelation to practice the pure or orthodox religion of Al-Islam from Salafiyya to the end of it. It doesn't matter. One cannot offer any sacrifice to anyone, talihan or salihan, whether they be wretched or righteous. It does not matter. And just the fact that one is slaughtered for a person that's righteous does not justify it. It's not permissible to sacrifice for other than Allah. Doesn't matter who it is. لا ملك مقرب ولا نبي مرسل. Not an angel who is close, nor a prophet or a messenger that's been sent by Allah. For that reason, when he says for other than Allah in the chapter, and this will show you everyone the proper books to buy so you can follow along in the lesson properly next time, inshallah. For verily, this particular wording in the chapter generalizes all these matters, or all these type, or all of the creation without any exception. It's not permissible to sacrifice even for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or for the angels, or for who it is, whether it be a person that's righteous or wretched. Doesn't matter. The ruling is general, that if it's worship, it's only directed to who? To Allah Ta'ala only. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب باب جاء في الذبح لغير الله. طيب. For the mu'allif rahimahullah, as we know, the great Imam, Shaykh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, after he mentions a particular wording, he always follows it up with an evidence and proof. And that's what our religion is based upon, as we know. Everything is not based upon how we feel. Everything is based upon concrete, authentic evidences and proofs. And there's no greater evidence and proof other than the Book of Allah and the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. They are the greatest. Why? Because they're authentic. Because Allah, in the final revelation, promised humanity that He was going to protect it from mankind tampering with it. And no one can what? Change it. So you know, in that book, what you're reading is absolute, authentic, clear-cut evidences and proofs from Allah, which Allah sent down in order to demolish falsehood and to demolish all the different types of false, not only false deities that are worshipped along with Allah, but also the different type of false beliefs and methodologies that mankind believe, which are destructive and also cause destruction to society. So Allah sent down in His book those verses, which are concrete proofs and evidences. That's the reason why we always tell people, our fellow Muslims and brothers, fellow Muslim sisters and brothers, always base the religion upon the ilm, not upon how you feel. Ever. How you feel is subjected to change. One day you can feel this way, another way you can feel another. The way you will be firm and stable and have stability and firmness in your religion is when you base it upon what? Knowledge and proof. The ilm, knowledge, and authentic proofs and evidences. Once you build your foundation upon that, then you will never go astray. If you truly understand it and you believe it firmly in your heart and you actualize it in your actions, you will never go astray. Once you base it upon knowledge and you base it upon concrete proofs and evidences which are authentic. And there's nothing more authentic than the Book of Allah. Tabaraka wa ta'ala. So the great Imam in his book, after he put in the chapter, this title, the chapter which comes in slaughter, sacrifice for other than Allah, you'll find he even used and followed it up with the evidence and proof from the Book of Allah Tabaraka wa ta'ala. For now, if you look in the Book of Allah, in Surah Al-An'am, which we'll give you inshallah, because there's a whole bunch of Masahir Qur'ans back there. But anyway, he follows this title with a proof and evidence from the Book of Allah, from the Qur'an. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ وَبِذَلِكَ أُمِرْتُ وَأَنَا أَوَّلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Allah Tabaraka wa ta'ala says in his book, Surah Al-An'am, that Allah Tabaraka wa ta'ala says in his book, say to the people, say Muhammad, and as we know the addressment is for all of the nation of Muhammad, I don't want to use nation, you get confused with the nation of Islam. For all of the followers of Muhammad, we're not talking about for Muhammad, we're not talking about the nation of Islam. They're not even Muslim. We're talking about what? We're talking about the followers of Muhammad ibn Abdullah alayhi salatu wasalam, which we'll discuss later when we have some more time. Because their meaning of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, they think Father Muhammad is the last, or Elijah Muhammad is the last prophet and messenger. The messenger to the black man, as they say, which is incorrect. The messenger to the black man. And if there was a messenger that was come after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, don't you think that Allah would send some revelation down saying that there will be inevitably another messenger that will come after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? His name is Elijah Muhammad to the black man. That never came anywhere. There was no evidence and proof for that. There was not a prophet and messenger except that they gave tidings of another messenger and prophet that will come after them after they die. You'll never find any evidence and proof that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, meaning Muhammad bin Abdullah, who died over 1,000 years ago, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, giving glad tidings that there will be another messenger to come after him. Rather, he said he's the last prophet and messenger. He's the seal of all prophets. And there's no one that's going to come after him. So that reason, Elijah Poole or Elijah Muhammad is not a messenger of Allah. And there's no one and Farrakhan is not a messenger of Allah. And if you believe that also, we'll discuss at another time. If you believe that likewise, that will nullify your Islam. If that's for the people who believe that, what about the person who says he's a messenger and prophet? If a person believes right now that Elijah Muhammad and Farrakhan is a messenger of Allah and a prophet of Allah, and that belief nullifies your Islam, and that's for the people who believe that. What about the person who calls to it? What about the person himself saying, I am a messenger of Allah? Or I'm a prophet of Allah? طيب. For that reason, Ya Ma'ash al-Ikhwa, it says in the ayah, verily my salat, verily my, if you look in the, we have to get you guys some books. Verily my prayer, my sacrifice, he says, and my life and my death is for Allah, the Lord of everything, Lord of all the creation. He has no partners, and this is what I've been commanded with, and I'm the first of the Muslimin. So this addressment is for the Prophet ﷺ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Qul, say, Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. Say, verily my prayer and my nusuk, meaning my sacrifice, meaning what I offer as a what? As a sacrifice for Allah, and those different dhaba'ih, those different offerings of sacrifices of those animals that I put forth to draw close to Allah and worshiping, all of that is exclusively and only for Him. So Allah Ta'ala says in His book, verily say, O Muhammad, say to the polytheists and those who worship other deities and other objects and other people, say to them, announcing to them of what you are doing as far as what? Carrying out the pure monotheism and unification of Allah in His worship. Say to them this what? This ayah. Say to them this verse. And as we know, and we'll talk about inshallah, this ayah was an ayah Makkiyah. Ayah that was revealed while the Prophet ﷺ was in Mecca. Why did the ulama focus on that? Why did they say whether that ayah was Makkiyah or was it Madaniyah? What's from the benefits of that? From the benefits of that, because we know during the first 13 years, during Mecca, the Prophet ﷺ only focused on this in his message. To teach the people how to worship Allah properly and to purify their minds, how they think. Prophet ﷺ was purifying their hearts and minds and how it thinks. And he focused on this first before anything else. He focused on worship, how to unify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their worship, and how to remove the inclination of polytheism within themselves, based upon what they had been an influence of their forefathers. Because what we know, what we've been brought up upon from our forefathers, is deep rooted in ourselves, to the point where it's hard for us to leave it off. And you'll find that Allah Ta'ala revealed ayat talking about that. How dangerous it is to cling on to what your forefathers were upon, and how it ultimately can lead one to hell likewise, because of just something that you what your mother, what your grandmother, what your great-grandmother, your great-grandfather used to do, even though it was incorrect. But however, the Prophet ﷺ, when he was sent with this in Mecca, he started with this affair of 13 years, because the Prophet ﷺ knew of this type of danger that was in the people, because of their inclination, how it was deep-rooted in themselves, polytheism, because that's what their forefathers were practicing. They were practicing idol worship, and it was deep-rooted in themselves. So the Prophet ﷺ drilled 13 years, teaching them this affair until what? Until it was finally rectified. So he focused on 13 years in Mecca. And Mecca was 13 years focusing on what? The affairs of ibadah, of worship. Teaching the people of how to worship Allah Ta'ala, unifying Him in His worship. So you notice this verse is Makkiyah. It was revealed in Mecca. Why was it revealed in Mecca? Because all the affairs of monotheism was the main focus. is in the revelation. You guys not write this down. It was the main focus in the first part of the revelation, which was for 13 years. And if you notice, a lot of the verses that was revealed in Mecca was all revolved around what? All revolved around monotheism. 13 years straight, majority of it revolved around monotheism, how to unify Allah and His worship for 13 years straight. The revelation was, its primary focus was on that. So it wasn't calling to the black man as a descendant of God, or the generation of the black man was an offspring, and to the point where Jesus was a black man. All these other things that have no benefit and it's irrelevant. Ultimately, okay, Jesus was a black man, so why are you still killing and shooting people? What does that have to do with you? You get what I'm saying? Okay, you know, if Jesus was a black man, how is that going to affect you in your daily life? And how is that going to prepare you to meet Allah? Ultimately, Allah is going to ask you about two things on the day of resurrection. Allah is not going to ask you whether you are black. Allah is not going to ask you whether you are white. Allah is not going to ask you whether you are Arab or whether you are non-Arab. Allah Ta'ala is going to address two affairs on the day of resurrection. Two things are going to be looked at on the day of resurrection. Number one is your belief system. Allah is going to look at what you believe. As we know, the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri and also the hadith of Abu Hurairah, when we have the time, inshallah, we'll talk about it. As it will be announced on the day of resurrection, when the people raise up, everybody will be gathered from all of the creation and all the other belief systems and all the other ways and ideologies and methods that they had in this world. And it will be called out, meaning the angel will go and call out, لِتَتْبَعْ كُلُّ أُمَّةٍ مَا كَانَتْ تَعْبُدْ. Let every nation follow what he used to worship. So on the day of resurrection, what's going to be looked at and examined first is your belief system. So that's number one. So Allah, it's not going to be called out, let every person who is black come forward. Or every person that's white come forward. Or that every person that was a Jew come of course we know that the Yahud are going to be dressed too. But not every person who had long hair in this world, or the one who had coarse hair, or the one who was skinny, or the one who was tall. All that's irrelevant. Two things will be what? Examined on the day of resurrection. Number one is your belief system. Whether or not you believed in the revelation that Allah sent down, which is the final revelation to all humanity, which is concrete, clear proofs and evidences that no human being can tamper with, and no human being can change. And Allah made His signs clear in His book, because there's no human being that tries to tamper with the Quran and the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, except that their efforts have failed. And that's the confirmation of what Allah had promised in His book, saying to the creation that He's going to definitely protect it from mankind changing it. And which to this day we see that no human being can tamper with the Quran and Sunnah. No one. Numerous attempts have been tried, and all of their efforts have failed. To let you know, and it necessitates that what? If you look in the verses in the Quran, all of it is still in the proper language of what is revealed into this day. It's still in its language, it's still intact. Even to the point where we recite in our prayers, we still have to recite in the Arabic form of how the book was revealed. There's no getting around it. So what we say, ya ma'ashal ikhwan, so that we know when we read that it's actual, authentic proofs that Allah sent down, and it's authentic evidences. And we all have to think in the back of our minds, did a man put his opinion in this? That's what the Bible and the Christians and Judaism, their efforts and their books have been what? Tampered with. But in the final revelation that Allah promised in His book, He Himself, the one who created everything, said He's going to protect it from mankind, what? Trying to change it. So when in this book, in this surah, and what we just mentioned, which is the Surah Al-An'am, Allah sent down this verse. And like we said, it was Makkiyah. So one of the benefits of saying it's Makkiyah, because during that period of time, during the first part of the revelation, everything revolved around what, everyone? Around the worship of Allah first. Then the rest of the ahkam, as we'll talk about inshallah, was revealed later on, as far as inheritance, as far as how to treat people, as far as in regards to how to treat your children, your wives, your family, business, trade, relationships, marriages, all that came later. But the foundation of worship was the primary focus in the first 13 years. That's why this ayah was revealed in Mecca for 13 years during that time, when the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was making this his focus, which was what? The worship of Allah, and how to purify the people's worship from polytheism. So you'll find, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, in the ayah, Allah Ta'ala says, verily my salah and my sacrifice and my life and my death is for Allah Ta'ala. So the ayah, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, as a nusuki, that when it says in the ayah, قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي, nusuki, meaning my sacrifice. Let me break this down. What we want to say that it applies to is what? Is for the al-ma'na al-shar'i. What time does salah come in? 8:30? 8:35? 8:33 around that time. طيب. For now we know that Allah Ta'ala said, say that my prayer and my sacrifice, what I offer, is for Him alone, solely. And it's the meaning of it, is because we know, is the dhaba'ih, is the animals of what is sacrificing for Him Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in one drawing worship or drawing close to Him by offering that sacrifice. We already talked about that. If one was to do it for other than Allah, then it's what? It's polytheism. Type. Notice it says in the verse, if you look in your books, it says, verily my salah and verily my what? My sacrifice. Now look to the last part. My life and my death. My life and my death. What do you, from those who've learned the different categories of Tawheed, what do you see in the ayah? Huh? This is not for you guys. This comes later. I think I already taught you guys this, but did I teach you this? Or you already knew? Or you didn't know prior? Did we go over this before? No, go ahead, Jamal. You're right. Alhamdulillah. Listen to this. Jamal said, I can call you Jamal. Jamal says, even though I like Jamal for you, Jamal says that in the ayah, there's two categories of Tawheed. He says, one says, Nusuki, say that my salat, my prayer, my sacrifice. What category of Tawheed is that? What category of Tawheed is that? What category of salat and sacrifice is that? Uluhi. So that's Tawheed al-Ibadah. So that's in pertaining to what? Worship. Because we know prayer and sacrifice is the actions of the what? Of the person. Right? My life and my death. Is that Tawheed al-Uluhiyah? My life and my death. Think. Which category of Tawheed is that? My life and my death. Huh? Rububiyyah. Ahsant. How's it Rububiyyah? Because a person would say, well, since my salat, my life, my death, my sacrifice, my prayer, my sacrifice, my life and my death. Ahsant. You can't give yourself life and death. You can't give yourself life and death. So, the ayah you'll find gathers between two categories of monotheism, which is number one, which is the category of Tawheed, which is Tawheed al-Uluhiyah, which is in the first two affairs of worship, which is what? Prayer and what? Sacrifice. Whereas accompanied along with that, what you find in the ayah, what is it, everyone? Huh? The second two, which is what? My life and my death, which is Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. Jayyid. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. Meaning, if the last two verses, can y'all share the book with? No, I meant for Jamal and them. I wanted them to share with them. You came late. No, they've been here before everyone. No problem. You can share together. I'm just messing with you. I'm playing with you. طيب. My death and my life, meaning who Allah administrates the affair of life and death, we know is only exclusively for him, subhanahu wa jalla fil ula, as we know, right everyone? طيب. So in the ayat it gathers between both affairs. Rububiyyah wal uluhiyyah. As I talked about on many occasions, Allah Ta'ala is going to test the people on the day of resurrection by these categories. A lot of people say, what do you mean? Allah Ta'ala on the day of resurrection, every human being, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is going to call out by Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, which comes as a result of it, which is what? Tawheed al-Ibadah. They necessitate each other. Whereas if you know that Allah Ta'ala is the only one that can give life, He's the only one that creates, sustains. All these are His actions. They're not the actions of the what? Of humanity or mankind or the abd or the slave. They're not His actions. The one that sends down the rain gives life, gives life. Type. On the day of resurrection, as we'll talk about inshallah, Allah Ta'ala is going to have a caller call out. He says, He's going to say, أيها الناس ألم ترضوا من ربكم الذي خلقكم وَرَزَّقَكُمْ أَن تَعْبُدُوهُ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا أَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ عَدْلًا مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. As it's going to be said on the day of resurrection, when the people are all brought up from their graves, after people are dead. We don't believe how the Nation of Islam believes that there's going to be a mothership that's going to come pick us up. In some of their books they say. In some of them they say that there is no death of life, rather that there is no hereafter. The hereafter is of the mind and all these other nonsense they say. No, there will officially be a day of resurrection, that everybody will be brought back to life after death. And when you come, there will be a call that's going to call out to all the creation. They're going to say, "O people, isn't it not pleased that you were what? From the one who created you, and He provided for you. From the one who's your Lord. He says that you what? That you worship Him and not set up any partners with Him." So everyone will be called out by that on the day of resurrection. The one who, I would not be pleased from your Lord, the one who created you and the one who what? Sustains you and created you. That's Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. Everyone is going to be called out by that on the day of resurrection. Basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have that caller. They will be called out to let the people know that you as human beings knew that there was only one deity that done this for you. Created you, sustained you, and all these other affairs. As a result of it, you were supposed to what? Worship Him alone. So based upon those two categories, you'll find that it's also in this ayah here. It's here in that ayah, in that verse. Where they gather between both affairs. Which is what? Which is lordship of Allah, the rububiyyah of Allah, and also what? The ibadah. Because all these affairs is how it's going to play out in the day of resurrection. Like we talked about before, Allah is going to look at two things on the day of resurrection. Number one, your belief system. Number two, what the belief system will bear, or what the belief system, if one had rectified it, of course, and if one had purified it from what taints it of all the correct beliefs, what comes as a result if a person rectifies his belief system, it will bear the fruits of righteous actions. And that's the second thing that Allah will look at after the examination of the creed is done. Because if a person's creed and his belief system is corrupt, then on the day of resurrection it will not be accepted. And then the abode of the individual will be held directly, without any hesitation. As we know on the day of resurrection, because of a person's belief system, like we said, the people who will be called to the sun will go to the sun, and the people who worship other than Allah or rocks or anything, and they will all become the hellfire. So the belief system will what? Will be examined. Once the belief system that's examined is intact and it's sound and it's correct, then you will see the fruits of it, which is what? Is the righteous actions. Righteous actions only come based upon what you rectify as far as your foundation. If your foundation is sound, you will start to become an upright human being automatically. If you correct it and perfect it, your belief system first. It will bear the fruits of what? Righteous actions. Those are the only two things that Allah Ta'ala will look at on the day of resurrection with the people. The belief system, righteous actions, or the evil ones. But notice that will come after what? The examination of the foundation first. After the examination of the foundation first, then the righteous actions will be looked at and the evil ones. Then they will be put on the scale. And then, if the person, like we said, gets past that test, and we know that the first test on the day of resurrection is the belief system, to see if that's sound and see if that will be checked first. Then after that foundation is laid down, then after that is the righteous actions, or the evil ones will be examined. But if there's no foundation that's there in the first place, then we know that all the righteous actions, whether you've done evil or good in this world, has no relevancy on the day of resurrection. Right, everyone? Based upon the foundation was corrupt. For the foundation being corrupt, then we know of what good has person, if it's based upon polytheism, it's nullified. No matter what you did of good in this world, whether you smiled in a person's face, whether you gave to the poor, or whether you saved someone's life, and these are tremendous noble affairs. These are tremendous, and they are loved with Allah. That you save, that you smile in somebody's face, and that you treat them nice, and that you give them good dealings, and you treat them good, and you do good to the creation, treating the animals nice, and treating people well, and treating them fairly, and treating children nice, and teaching the children. All these things are noble, tremendous affairs. But however, they have no benefit if it's based upon a corrupt belief system and what they call as mabniya ala al-asl fasid. If it's all built upon a corrupt foundation, will come as a result of it, you have no chance on the day of resurrection. So that's the reason why you'll find in these ayat, in so many verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pairs up Tawheed al-Rububiyyah wal-Uluhiyyah together. So many ayat. And as I talked about and I emphasized so many occasions, and I keep repeating this over and over again, Allah mentions Tawheed al-Rububiyyah in order to what? To establish Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. You will never find an ayah in the book of Allah in the Quran where Allah says He does something, whether bring down a rain, or He's creating, or sustaining, or giving life, or giving death, or talking about how He gave you life after you didn't exist, and now He brought you out of non-existence, and Allah brought you into existence. And talking about how He creates, how He sustains, how He preordains the affairs, and how He administrates this existence, and how He takes care of the creation, no matter how big or how minute. Allah Ta'ala does all those affairs, and He establishes this in the minds of the creation in order to say, you know this, that He is the one that does this alone. So what comes as a result of it, what is the what? What is the ultimate result, if you notice, is that He deserves to be worshipped alone, which is the other category of Tawheed. So there's no category of monotheism except that Allah Ta'ala establishes by Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, what everyone? Tawheed al-Ibadah, unifying Allah in His worship. Like we talked about before, Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, the Tawheed al-Rububiyyah necessitates Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. Well, Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah contains Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. I'll say it again. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah necessitates Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, the Lordship of Allah, necessitates what? The worship of Allah. And the worship of Allah contains the worship of the Lordship of Allah. Unifying Allah in His Lordship. It contains it. So anytime you worship Allah, you are doing two things simultaneously at once. You're doing and actualizing Tawheed al-Rububiyyah along with Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah together. Because there's not a time where you raise your hands and asking Allah something that's going on in your life. You're asking Allah, except that it's as if your heart knows that Allah, you're the one that's the only one that's capable of changing it. So that's Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. By you doing the act is Tawheed al-Ibadah and al-Uluhiyyah, which is the aspect of worship, and which we'll talk about inshallah. طيب. So Allah Ta'ala in this ayah couples up what? In this verse, what everyone? And I'm surprised no one's writing this down. No one is writing this down. So that's the reason why when I come test everyone, nobody knows the answer. So I'll say to you brothers, what's in this ayah? Abada. Go back to the class and listen to it on recording, please. Guys, subhanAllah, everyone knows, sometimes I get frustrated. I'll be repeating something 1,000 times, and brothers still forget. And I know people in the class, even online, they say, AbdurRazzaaq, you repeat to the point, it's irritating. I said, well, people still be coming after you and I test them. They're like, That's what we're supposed to do. طيب. So in regards to what we said, Rabbul Alameen. So nothing in the verse, what does it say? Verily my salah, verily my sacrifice. What category of Tawheed is that? Rububiyyah. Verily my salah, verily my what? Sacrifice. What category of Tawheed is that? Rububiyyah. Rububiyyah? What is it? Uluhiyyah. Paying attention, Jade. Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. It's Tawheed al-Ibadah. Or Tawheed al-Talab al-Qasd. طيب. Tawheed al-Ibadah. Or Tawheed, you could call it any one of these names. You could call it Tawheed al-Ibadah. Or you could call it Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. Or you could call it Tawheed al-Ilahiyyah. No, you could call it Tawheed al-Ilahiyyah. And Ibn al-Qayyim calls in his book Tawheed al-Talab wal-Qasd. Talk about that later. I talked about it in the first lesson, Kitaab Tawheed. Don't worry about it. It's almost meaning the same thing. طيب. Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah is the first part of the verse. The last part of the verse, my life and my death. Rububiyyah. So Allah Ta'ala couples it together. You'll find that in a lot of verses in the Quran. A whole lot. A whole lot. Matter of fact, I'll give one instance. Another instance. This long ayah. This is beautiful ayah. It's Surah Hud. Allah Ta'ala says in his book, Wallahu yad'u ila dar as-salam. Wa yahdi man yasha ila sirat al-mustaqim. Walillahi al-husn. عفوا ولله الذين أحسنوا الحسنى والزيادة ولا يرهقهم قتر ولا ذلة أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون. Well, first I'm going to say the first part. والذين كسبوا السيئات جزاء سيئة بمثلها وترهقهم ذلة ما لهم من الله من عاصم كأنما أغشيت وجوههم قطع من الليل مظلمة أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون ويوم نحشرهم جميعا ثم نقول للذين أشركوا مكانكم أنتم وشركاؤكم فزينا بينهم فقال شركاؤهم ما كنا إيانا تعبدون فكفى بالله شهيدا بيننا وبينكم إن كنا عن عبادتكم لغافلين هنالك تبلو كل نفس ما أسلفت وردوا إلى الله مولاهم الحق وضل عنهم ما كانوا يفترون قل من يرزقكم من السماء والأرض أمن يملك السمع والأبصار ومن يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي فسيقولون الله قل أفلا تتقون ذلكم الله ربكم الحق فماذا بعد الحق إلا الضلال فأنا تصرفون وكذلك حقت كلمة ربك على الذين فسقوا أنهم لا يؤمنون. Listen to the ayah where Allah Ta'ala says in his book. Tremendous ayah. Surah Hud. So, ayah is beautiful. Well, Allah Ta'ala says in his book, Allah calls to the Dar as-Salam. Allah calls to paradise in the hereafter. Not based upon what Farrakhan believes. As far as the gardens, he thinks it's in the mind of we're talking about Jannah, the hereafter. Allah calls to this. And He guides who He wants to the what? To the correct path. Jayid? Listen to the ayah. I'm almost finished. لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا الْحُسْنَى وَزِيَادَةً وَلَا يَرْهَقُهُمْ قَتَرٌ وَلَا ذِلَّةٌ أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. He said, for those who perfect their belief system and their actions in this dunya, believe what Allah, لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا الْحُسْنَى وَزِيَادَةً. Will have paradise is something extra. We know that extra means looking at Allah. Because we know in the hereafter, Allah will change the creation. Because no one can withstand to look at Allah in this world. No one can see Allah. No one can see God, as the kuffar say God. We say Allah. Allah Ta'ala says, as we know, no one can see Allah in this world. Human body is too weak. Musa couldn't even take it. Fell out when Allah revealed himself to the mountain. Which was to show Musa, you are too weak. Right? طيب. For those who perfected their belief system and their actions in this world will have paradise in the hereafter and will have the pleasure to see Allah. And which we know, as we know that Ibn al-Qayyim says, two things happen in the hereafter when you're in paradise. You will gain the pleasure of the body, of the outside exterior of the body, which is from all the different things that will satisfy and give enjoyment and delight to your body, physically, outwardly. Right? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also will gather and give another type of pleasure. So not only do you get the physical outward pleasure, which will be done by the enjoyment of, for example, of the dwelling places and the different servants and the wives and all these other things as al-hulil wal-hulal wal-anhar wal-azwaj al-mutahara, to the end of it. All the different affairs of what was pertaining to the outward delightment and enjoyment of paradise, that's going to happen in paradise. But there's another extra thing that no human being has taught or had, that pleasure, which will take place, which is the pleasure of the heart, and which Allah will allow that to take place by looking at Him. So you get what? Two pleasures. Pleasures of the body and pleasure of your heart. And the only way that the pleasure of the heart will take place is when the people are actually look at Allah. Because as we know, Allah Ta'ala will give the human being the strength in order to withstand, to gaze and look at Him. And as we know, as a lot of people said to me in another class a couple of days ago, and I told them this. He says, even the angels, I say, even the angels, Allah will have to change the creation of the angels and the whole entire existence. And even the human beings in order to withstand, to look at Him. The whole existence needs to be changed in order to look at Allah. No, nothing Allah created can withstand to look at Him. Tabarak wa ta'ala. Allah had to change the whole of existence up so they can withstand to look at Him. The angels and the whole of existence. Because if Allah took off His hijab, which is light, it would burn up everything. As we know, the Prophet said in the hadith where he said, وَحِجَابُهُ النُّورُ لَوْ كَشَفَهُ لَأَحْرَقَتْ سُبُحَاتُ وَجْهِ مَنْ تَهَى إِلَيْهِ بَصْرُهُ مِنْ خَلْقِهِ. That Allah Ta'ala, as we know, as His hijab is light. If He was to take it off, it will burn up everything, because He sees everything. Ta'ala. Everything that He sees will burn up, and that's everything. طيب. So two things taking place what? In paradise. Pleasure of the body and pleasure of the what? The heart. The pleasure of the heart will take place by looking at Allah. And likewise, the people of the hellfire will receive the same punishment too. Same punishment. Whereas they will not get any delight of what? In their physicality. And they will get the ultimate torture of the heart too, which is never to see Allah. So not only people of paradise get the enjoyment of the body and the enjoyment of the heart, the people of the hellfire get the opposite totally of that. They get torture of the body and torture of the heart together. Which is the opposite effect. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? How many does it enough in this at any rate? Now listen to the ayah before we come and finish the ayah, At-Tawheed. So Allah Ta'ala says, وَيَوْمَ نَحْشُرُهُمْ جَمِيعًا ثُمَّ نَقُولُ لِلَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا مَكَانَكُمْ أَنْتُمْ وَشُرَكَاؤُكُمْ فَزَيَّنَّ بَيْنَهُمْ وَقَالَ شُرَكَاؤُهُمْ مَا كُنَّا إِيَّانَا تَعْبُدُونَ فَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ إِن كُنَّا عَنْ عِبَادَتِكُمْ لَغَافِلِينَ. He says, on the day when we gather all the creation together, idols, everyone who used to worship other than Allah, Jesus, the son of Mary, everyone, we're going to gather all of them up and bring them together and put them right in front of Allah. He's going to say, you and the partners you used to worship along with Allah, right in that spot. Antum wa shuraka'ukum. You and your partners, right there. And they're going to pair them up together. He says, and those who they used to worship along with Allah from those idols or those human beings, they're going to say, you didn't used to worship us. Meaning they're going to free themselves from those who used to worship Him in this world. مَا كُنَّا إِيَّانَا تَعْبُدُونَ. It wasn't us used to worship. It suffices between us and Allah. Verily, we were totally heedless in this world of you worshiping us. So notice Allah Ta'ala what? Talks about worship, which is Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. Then it's going to go back to Tawheed al-Rububiyyah after I finish with the adhan. Listen to this ayah. So Allah Ta'ala on the day of resurrection, He says, وَيَوْمَ نَحْشُرُهُمْ جَمِيعًا ثُمَّ نَقُولَ لِلَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا مَكَانَكُمْ أَنْتُمْ وَشُرَكَاؤُكُمْ فَزَيَّنَّا بَيْنَهُم. He said, we're going to pair them up together. Every people who was in this world and the idols in which they used to worship, Allah is going to bring them together and pair them together. And then the people who, as far as the idols that was associated, which they used to direct their worship to, other than Allah, is going to bear witness against them and say, it wasn't us you used to worship. مَا كُنْتُمْ إِيَّانَ تَعْبُدُونَ فَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ إِن كُنَّا عَنْ عِبَادَتِكُمْ لَغَافِلِينَ هُنَالِكَ تَبْلُو كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا أَسْلَفَتْ وَرُدُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ مَوْلَاهُمُ الْحَقِّ وَضَلَّ عَنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يَفْتَرُونَ. And the end of the ayah, as he knows what he says, what did it go on to say? After Allah Ta'ala establishes the haqq on the day of resurrection and destroy batil, which is of shirk and of polytheism and idolatry in this dunya, Allah Ta'ala now will come with Tawheed al-Rububiyyah in the end. But Allah Ta'ala says in His book, after they will bear witness and flip against them, meaning those who are idols will flip against its worshippers and turn against them. It suffices as a witness between us and you, as Allah was a witness. Verily we were totally heedless of you worshiping us. Doesn't matter if it's Jesus, the son of Mary, the Yahud, a rock, tree, doesn't matter what it is. All of them are going to flip against them on the day of resurrection. Allah has given these details totally and clearly. So it says in the ayah, هُنَالِكَ تَبْلُو كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا أَسْلَفَتْ. He said that every soul will be tested and put to test of what it done in this world. And it will return back to their Mawlahum al-Haq, the true Mawla, the true protector was Allah. And وَضَلَّ عَنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يَفْتَرُونَ. They're going to go astray who used to fabricate upon Allah with those idols. Then Allah Ta'ala says in this book, going back to what we're talking about right now. So notice Allah talked about Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. Notice it's going to return back to Tawheed al-Rububiyyah again. And Allah mentioned it in 4 different ayat. Listen to this. He says, مَنْ يَرْزُقُكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Who provides you from what? From the heavens and the earth. Which category of Tawheed is that, everyone? Rububiyyah. من يرزقكم من السماء والأرض أمن يملك السمع والأبصار ومن يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي فسيقولون الله قل أفلا تتقون. Who's the one? من يرزقكم من السماء والأرض. Who is the one that brings? Who's the one that owns the eyesight and the ears? Which Tawheed? Which category? Rububiyyah again. Takes out the life from death and gives life to يخرج الحي من الميت. He brings the life, and He will bring life back to the dead and give death back to the one who's living, meaning the people that's living now in this world. Which category of Tawheed is that? Rububiyyah again. In order to establish what? In order to establish at the end of the ayah, what does it say? يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي فسيقولون الله قل أفلا تتقون ذلكم الله ربكم الحق فماذا بعد الحق إلى الضلال فأن تصرفون وكذلك حقت كلمة ربك على الذين فسقوا أنهم لا يؤمنون. As an to the end of the ayah, was talking about Tawheed al-Rububiyyah about how many times? Maybe 6 times in this ayah. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah was mentioned. 6 times. 6 examples of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. All to establish what? The beginning part of the ayah where Allah Ta'ala talks about what happened on the day of resurrection, where He says, talks about what? Establishing His worship. And how everything on the day of resurrection that was associated with Him and partners in His worship will flip against the people. No matter who it is, with no exception. No matter if it's a rock, tree, righteous person, wretched person, even the shaitan himself, even the devil himself are going to flip and turn against the people on the day of resurrection. What did Allah Ta'ala say in this book? Where He says, with the shaitan, وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانُ لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَعَدَكُمْ وَعْدَ الْحَقِّ وَوَعَدْتُكُمْ فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ وَمَا كَانَ لِي عَلَيْكُمْ بِسُلْطَانٍ إِلَّا دَعَوْتُكُمْ فَاسْتَجَبْتُمْ لِي فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ مَا أَنَا بِمَصْرِخِكُمْ وَمَا أَنْتُمْ بِمَصْرِخِي إِنِّي كَفَرْتُمْ بِمَا أَشْرَكْتُمُونِي مِنْ قَبْلِ إِنَّ الظَّالِمِينَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. We know Allah Ta'ala says in His book, what everyone? He says the shaitan himself, when the affair has been done, when people are going to hell and people going to paradise. It's the shaitan says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَعْدَكُمْ وَعْدَ الْحَقِّ. Allah promised you to promise the truth. I promise you and I betray my promise. I had no power over you except I called you, you answered me. Don't blame me, blame yourself. I can't save you, you can't save me. Verily, listen to the shaitan. Shaitan believes in Tawheed, that the only one who deserves to be worshipped Allah. He believes in Tawheed. He believes that it's correct. He believes monotheism is correct. Inni kafartum bima ashraktumuni min qabl. I disbelieve what you associated with me as partners with Allah. It's to show shaitan has what? To know that the correct truth is what? It's Tawheed, monotheism. He knows it. That the only one deserves to be worshipped in truth is who? Is Allah ta'ala. He knows that. All these affairs are going to what? Flip on the day of resurrection against the people, right, everyone? So that's the reason why I wanted to tell you that story in order to show that what? Tawheed al-Rububiyyah is mentioned in the book of Allah in order to establish what, everyone? Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. فتوحيد الربوبية يستلزم توحيد الألوهية وتوحيد الألوهية يتضمن توحيد الربوبية. توحيد الربوبية necessitates what? الألوهية. And توحيد الألوهية contains ربوبية. جيد? As you go along the lessons, you're going to understand more. Trust me, you're going to get used to it. I repeat 1,000 times. طيب stop it. طيب هذا وصلى الله وسلم بارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Any questions about the lesson? تفضل يا جماعة. I like Jamal instead of Jamar. I like Jamal.